The following program contains graphic descriptions of the life of Muhammad. If you suffer from the notion that all religions are equal, this show might not be right for you. Check with your local imam.
Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, miserere nobis. Agnus Dei, qui tollis peccata mundi, dona nobis pacem.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. A horrific homegrown terrorist attack, this time in England. We're going to look at it. We're also going to study the tragic, I'm going to say it, pathetic words of the British Prime Minister. And this tax scandal just keeps growing. It keeps giving, and we'll give you some more of it today. I'm actually afraid of my government. I admit it on the air. I am afraid of my own government. There, I said it. Hi, my name is Randall, and I'm afraid of my government. Please, doctor, take it away. I just got an autographed copy of Dragon Slayers from Randall Terry. Look at this. Look. I'm so excited. I'm more excited than when I received my autographed Spider-Man copy from Stan Lee. Stan Lee. Welcome to today's program, friend. The English people have suffered a horrible terrorist attack. A former soldier was murdered in broad daylight while a lot of people stood around by two Muslims. If you search out some of their sound bites, you'll see what they are saying. At least Prime Minister Cameron had the intelligence to say that this was an act of terrorism. I mean, our president can't even figure that out, whether it's Fort Hood or any number of places where a Muslim, homegrown Muslim terrorist has shown his devotion to historic Islam. Lane, go ahead and run the clip, and I'm going to let you know ahead of time, this is a little bit disturbing. We're not going to show anyone being killed, but you will see he has blood on his hands, literally, from having just murdered this man. Go ahead, Lane.
In a South London street, a man with bloodied hands, carrying a knife and machete, approaches a camera and tries to justify what has just happened.
I apologise that women had to witness this today, but in our land, our women have to see the same. You people will never be safe. Remove your governments, they don't care about you.
He then walks back up the road, back towards the victim of this attack who lies prone in the street. A young man, believed to be a soldier. The man with blood on his hands then talks to a second man. There are also heated conversations with passers-by, people who have witnessed appalling violence, some of whom tried to stop it. But there was more violence to come. These pictures were taken shortly after the police opened fire on the two apparent attackers, who, according to witnesses, made to attack the officers.
Get back! Get back! Move back! Move back!
These pictures were taken by a man who'd been on a bus heading for a job interview the day Baghdad-style violence came to South London. Paul Davis, ITV News.
That was from a British news source. I want to do a very paced study of history because Prime Minister Cameron said some things that are simply untrue, and ignorance and I don't want to say lies because I don't know if he knows that he's lying, but ignorance and untruth of this magnitude can really be a danger to people, to us. He said, for example, this was not just an attack on Britain and on the British way of life, it was also a betrayal of Islam and of the Muslim communities who give so much to our country. I would contend that it was not a betrayal of Islam. He said, Cameron said, there is nothing in Islam that justifies this dreadful act. What most people do not understand is that the narrative of Islam revolves around the life of Muhammad himself, the founder of Islam, and around his early disciples. If you want to be a devout Muslim, then you want to mimic the actions and the words of Muhammad and his immediate disciples, or what they call the caliphs, the rightly guided caliphs and the companions of the prophet. That's what they call them. If you are a Christian, it's easy to just take Jesus and the apostles and look at how we try and mimic Christ and his apostles, and we try and live out what we see in the book of Acts, in the teachings of the Gospels, imitating the life of Christ. It's easy to just remove Jesus and the apostles from our own narrative and kind of picture ourselves in their narrative, where they want to mimic the words and the actions of their founder and his earliest and closest disciples. Muhammad killed people with his own hand. Muhammad cut people's heads off with his own hand. So when he says there's nothing in Islam that would justify this, that murderer was going back over there and was attempting to decapitate the dead soldier. That's what he was in the middle of doing when the police arrived. The example of decapitation originates with Muhammad himself. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'll look at some more of what Cameron said, look at what's going on in England, and hopefully you'll learn more from this program than you're getting from an awful lot of the other news sources. Don't go away.
One time when Randall and I were going to Oberlin, Ohio, we came upon a federal marshal who was picking up a runaway slave. The next morning, Randall got up early and pretty soon had everybody so riled up that they ran the marshal out of town. You might say that's where the Civil War started.
Every day in America, over 3,500 babies are torn apart by abortion. Shouldn't all babies, like this living, unborn child, have the right to life? Baby killing will only end when Americans see the truth of what abortion does to innocent children. You can help end this Holocaust by showing the truth of abortion in your area with a Face the Truth tour. Go to FaceTheTruthAmerica.com to set up a Face the Truth tour in your area. The babies and their mothers will be eternally grateful. In the 1980s, banks introduced designer checks. When my buddy George Johnson inquired at the bank, they had nothing for pro-lifers. So the Johnsons created beautiful pro-life bank checks showing babies with a strong pro-life message. You can speak out for life with every check you write, whether personal or business checks. Be a voice for babies with these pro-life checks. Go to prolifecheckguy.com to see more. That's prolifecheckguy.com. A nation without a conscience is a nation without a soul. A nation without a soul is a nation that cannot live. Sir Winston Churchill. One of the duties that we have as students of history, of theology, of any religion, is to let the history speak for itself, to let the religion speak for itself, to let the narrative speak for itself, and to not try and superimpose upon another religion or another history or another narrative our own history, our own religion, or our own narrative. When the murderer was saying, when the devout Muslim murderer was saying that you are attacking our people. Now, we would say, wait a minute, he was an English-born African. I mean, he was from African descent, not African-American, African Englishman. He was British. We think in terms, our narrative is nation states. I'm an American. He is English. He is French. But in the Muslim mindset, there is one ummah, one people. That's it. That is a part of their theology, a part of their ideology, a part of their political philosophy. There is one ummah, one people, with one caliph, one successor to Muhammad. That's it. So they say, if you're in any Muslim land as a soldier, that by definition you are attacking our people. Now, Cameron also said more Muslims have died from Islamic terrorism than non-Muslims. That's clearly true. The two founts of terrorism are, number one, Shiites fighting Sunnis. So there are continual acts of terrorism that are in-house, but that also is related to their theology. All right, the Shiites believe that it has to be a blood relative of Muhammad who leads the Ummah, and the Sunnis believe it could be anyone as long as they are a legitimate successor of Muhammad and the rightly guided caliphs. So that's one fount why more Muslims are killed. And the second one is that Islamic ideology and Islamic law says that you can kill a Muslim if the Muslim is helping the infidel. Muhammad said that there are those who profess Islam, but their words go out of their mouth like an arrow passes through the throat of a bird. Therefore, kill them where you find them. Those were Muhammad's instructions. Therefore, kill them. So, I think it was last year or the year before, the British uncovered and thankfully stopped a planned terrorist act where Muslims in England were going to murder a Muslim English soldier. By definition, that Muslim had committed a capital crime by standing against Islamic terrorism and wearing a British uniform and obeying the orders of this infidel government. According to Muhammad, according to Sharia law, that is a capital offense. So for Cameron to say nothing can justify this type of attack is simply factually inaccurate. And it borders on the ludicrous. Who's he playing to? I don't know. Who's advising him? I don't know. But his words are a danger. I got to take a break. When we come back, we'll look at the IRS unfolding scandal. Don't go away. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. Hi friend, I'm Randall Terry. President Adams, speaking about Muhammad, said, "The essence of his doctrine was violence and lust, to exalt the brutal over the spiritual part of human nature. Between these two religions, thus contrasted in the characters, a war of more than 1,200 years has already raged." Welcome back to the program, friend. Lois Lerner, as you may know, invoked the Fifth, but there is a problem. She testified first. So what I'm going to do is play for you a lengthy clip from Compliments of Your Tax Dollars from C-SPAN, and then talk about it. Go ahead, Lee.
Chairman and members of the committee, my name is Lois Lerner, and I'm the Director of Exempt Organizations at the Internal Revenue Service. I have been a government employee for over 34 years. I initially practiced law at the Department of Justice and later at the Federal Election Commission. In 2001, I moved to the IRS to work in the Exempt Organizations Office. And in 2006, I was promoted to be the director of that office. Exempt Organizations oversees about 1.6 million tax-exempt organizations and processes over 60,000 applications for tax exemption every year. As director, I'm responsible for about 900 employees nationwide and administer a budget of almost $100 million. My professional career has been devoted to fulfilling responsibilities of the agencies for which I have worked, and I am very proud of the work that I have done in government. On May 14th, the Treasury Inspector General released a report finding that the Exempt Organizations Field Office in Cincinnati, Ohio, used inappropriate criteria to identify for further review applications from organizations that plan to engage in political activity, which may mean that they did not qualify for tax exemption. On that same day, the Department of Justice launched an investigation into the matters described in the Inspector General's report. In addition, members of this committee have accused me of providing false information when I responded to questions about the IRS processing of applications for tax exemption. I have not done anything wrong. I have not broken any laws. I have not violated any IRS rules or regulations, and I have not provided false information to this or any other congressional committee. And while I would very much like to answer the committee's questions today, I've been advised by my counsel to assert my constitutional right not to testify or answer questions related to the subject matter of this hearing.
You have made an opening statement in which you made assertions of your innocence, assertions you did nothing wrong, assertions you broke no laws or rules. Additionally, you have authenticated earlier answers to the IG. At this point, I believe you have not asserted your rights, but in fact have effectively waived your rights. Would you please seek counsel for further guidance on this matter while we wait?
Mr. Issa, Mr. Cummings just said we should run this like a courtroom, and I agree with him. She just testified. She just waived her Fifth Amendment right to privilege. You don't get to tell your side of the story and then not be subjected to cross-examination. That's not the way it works. She waived her right to Fifth Amendment privilege by issuing an opening statement. She ought to stand here and answer our questions.
Now, this would be funny, except that it's really funny. I've testified many, many times in courtrooms under oath for depositions. I testified before a House subcommittee chaired by then Congressman Charles Schumer. If you want to get a good laugh, read the transcript, which is in my book, Why Does a Nice Guy Like Me Keep Getting Thrown in Jail? Once you start to testify, you have waived your Fifth Amendment privilege. All right, so in a courtroom, if you sit down and say, yes, I will take the stand, well, once you're on the stand and you say, I'm innocent, then the prosecutor gets to ask you questions. Well, where were you that night? I plead the Fifth. No, you can't plead the Fifth. You're on the stand. You're talking. So she came up with this opening statement, made allegations, made factual allegations and statements without anyone cross-examining her, and in effect waived her right to the Fifth Amendment, to her Fifth Amendment rights. So I don't know what's going to happen. I'm certain that they will call her back, and then the question will be whether or not they try and have a contempt of Congress against her if she refuses to testify. I've got to take a quick break. When we come back, I want to talk about what the president knew, when he knew it, who's lying. I mean, come on, really. Do you really think that they kept this from the president? And some other news that came out in these hearings about who knew what when and who withheld what from Congress. Don't go away. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books. theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last.
Save me, O God, by thy name, and judge me in thy strength. For strangers have risen up against me, and the mighty have sought after my soul, and they have not set God before their eyes.
Welcome back to the program, friend. All right, let's start off with a little bit of comic relief and watch the ongoing dance of White House Press Secretary Jay Carney with the press regarding what the president knew, who knew what about the IRS scandal. Go ahead.
And I think it's somewhat ironic that there has been some suggestion that action should have been taken because we were aware that the IG was, an independent IG was reaching the conclusion of a report and that it might have these findings, that somehow the president should have been notified or that we should have done something. And of course, the opposite is true because these kinds of independent investigations need to be independent. There should be no intervention by a White House, and of course there was not in this case. And that's why we had to wait appropriately until the report was publicized or published.
All right, so I just read a column from the Washington Post, which is the Washington Compost is what it's affectionately called around here because it's a hard left-leaning, protect Obama at all costs newspaper. They said, one of their columnists said, a special prosecutor in this is inevitable. All right, so the president should quickly appoint one, and then they can beat up on the special prosecutor, like people used to beat up on Ken Starr during the Clinton era, so that the president can say, this is just a partisan witch hunt, blah, blah, blah. On April 24th, when Kathleen Rumler told Dennis McDonough, the president's chief of staff, that this investigation was about to become public, there is simply no way that the chief of staff is going to withhold that kind of data from the President of the United States. I want you to stop and think about it. He's the chief of staff, but he's not the president. He knew when he received this news that this was a political bombshell that would hurt the president badly. Because you had Tea Party groups who were the most vocal and most powerful opponents of the Democratic machinery in 2010 and were the most vocal opponents of the president in 2012 during his re-election campaign. The IRS, one of their agents testified 2 days ago that in May of 2012, the IRS, not the independent, the IG, no, not that, but the IRS itself had finished an investigation and said, in effect, that yes, we have done something either illegal or for sure unethical. The IRS chief, which we'll talk about maybe in tomorrow's show, he did not tell Congress, all right? In May of 2012, Tea Party groups were being harassed, held up, interrogated, asked for donor information, asked what materials they were reading, what they were doing. This is draconian. This is like something out of the Soviet Union. If that had broke in 2012, there is a very strong likelihood that the scandal would have engulfed the Obama administration and kept him from winning re-election. That's how serious this is. Let's fast forward. So there is a question as to whether or not they knew about it back then. Fast forward to today. The idea that the chief of staff did not tell his boss about this looming scandal is ludicrous.
you.